Today we will see how to rotate a cube around a point. Basically, we'll try to rotate a cube around another object. So let's first create a blueprint. So right click on the content browser, click on the blueprint class, and then click on actor. Let us call this actor BP simple rotate around a point. Okay, let us open this blueprint by double clicking on it. And this opens the blueprint. And let us add a component cube. We will use the cube because it allows us to show rotation easily. And in the cube, as you can see, there is a simple mesh and it has transforms, location, rotation, scale set to 0, 0 and 1 respectively. Now we will add a rotating movement component. Now last time we used the rotating movement component just to rotate around its own axis. This time we will use it to rotate it around another point. As you can see, Z axis it is set to 180 degrees by default, but now if we play the simulation it rotates on its own axis, but we don't want to rotate it on its own axis. We want to rotate it on some other point in space. So let's say I set the rotation to on the x-axis to something like 100. Now it will rotate around a point which is 100 units away from the current object on the x-axis. So if I simulate, you can see it's actually not rotating on its own axis anymore. So to get a better idea, we will actually see it in the actual level. So let us compile and save. So let's drag this onto the screen and let us set this to 0, 0, 0, the location. So let's move the floor a little bit down so that this is still at 0, 0, 0. And let us add a sphere. So go to basic, we have a sphere, we'll drag the sphere into the level. And as you can see, this is at minus 200. We will set this also to 0, 0, 0 for the time being. And then we go back to the BP simple rotate around a point blueprint. And we'll move this cube by moving the blueprint itself. So let us move the blueprint about 200 units away from the sphere on the x-axis. Now, in the details tab, you can go down, click on the rotating movement, and we can modify the pivot translation so that it rotates around the z-axis. So now what we will do is we will figure out the pivot translation. So if you see the BP, this blueprint is actually 200 units away from the origin. Our sphere is at origin. So we need to rotate around minus 200 units from the cube. So let's set the rotating movement to minus 200 on the x-axis. So now if I actually play, you will see that the cube, okay, we should probably move our player character a little behind so that we can actually see what's happening. So if you see now, it's actually rotating on the z-axis around the sphere. Similarly, you can also do it on the x-axis and the y-axis. So let us say I want to rotate around the sphere on the y-axis. So let us go ahead and change the rotating movement from 180 on the x to we want it on the y-axis. So let's make this 180. Now if I play it, you can see that it's rotating around the sphere on the y-axis. So this is how you actually rotate a object around another object or a point in space that is not the origin.